Hey everybody, Johnny Cage here, welcoming you back to another game review. This time we're taking a look at Vice Project Doom, developed by ICOM and published by Sammy, released April 26, 1991 on the NES. In Vice Project Doom, you'll take on the role of Detective Hart, a member of this nameless city's Vice unit, investigating the sinister Beta Corporation following the disappearance of his former partner, and if that sounds especially deep for an NES game, well, that's because it is. The game itself plays out over 11 different stages, each broken down into smaller subsections, and surprisingly offers a variety of gameplay as well, with the first level being a driving stage, not unlike Spy Hunter, before moving into your standard kill everything that moves action game. There are even a couple shooting stages here, making this a real standout experience on the Nintendo. When I'm asked to describe this game, the best way to word it would be either a much better version of Bayou Billy or an easier version of Ninja Gaiden. Bayou Billy because of the variety of stage types, each of which is quite enjoyable, and Ninja Gaiden because of the deep story featuring long cutscenes after every level. Well, that and those damn flying enemies. Once they show up, it can bring your progress to a bit of a halt, but also similar to Ninja Gaiden is your rather large health bar, allowing you to absorb plenty of hits before you meet your demise. At least you don't get knocked back into death pits all that often in this game. And while you're going to have to deal as best you can with getting knocked around quite often, the game is pretty forgiving, featuring endless continues, and usually the last enemy before a boss fight will drop a big meat on a bone, which should be enough to bring you back to full health before the fight. Also, the boss fights for the most part are quite easy. Usually if you take your time or pay attention to a pattern, you can take them out the first time you come across them. When it comes to dealing with regular baddies, this game has you covered as well, with a few options available in your arsenal. Your character comes equipped with a beam sword, which can take out enemies above and behind you with a well-timed swipe, a gun which leaves something to be desired as the shot is a bit slow and only goes partially across the screen, and a grenade which comes in handy for dealing with enemies that require multiple hits or are in those hard to reach places. And it's not too hard to keep those weapons loaded as well, as enemies will often drop ammo for you when they are defeated. They can also drop health bottles, which give you back a measly 3 life, and coins, which will grant you an extra life if you happen to collect 100 of them. I really enjoy the difficulty curve of this game, as each level was well designed to progressively get a bit harder, and I would say by the time you reach level 7 or so, you'll really have your skills tested, even for seasoned retro gamers. But if you persevere, you will eventually find yourself at the 2-part final boss, first fighting off against a clone of yourself before taking on this crazy abomination. Shame you don't get a life refill between them though, cause if you do get killed on the second boss, you will be sent back to 11-2, perhaps some more shades of Ninja Gaiden showing through here. But like I said, the boss battles are all about taking your time and finding the patterns, and once you figure out how these two work, it isn't all that tough. The whole thing finishes off with a closing epilogue and even a cliffhanger of an ending. It shouldn't take you much more than 45 minutes or so to pile through this whole thing, even on your first playthrough. And if you come back to this one, I'm sure you can tackle it in 25 or less, making it a good filler title when you have some time to kill. The controls are both tight and responsive, and the layout is basically the same as you would expect with any other NES action game. A jumps and B attacks. Select will navigate you through the 3 weapons that you have at your disposal, but the standout maneuver here is holding down and forward to do this crouch run, which is really cool and can be useful on multiple occasions. As I touched on before, the game is loaded with cutscenes, offering some nice visuals throughout. There are also a lot of different enemy designs here to keep each level feeling quite fresh. You aren't going to find much color here though, which makes sense considering its dark tone, and while the color palette is quite drab, the designers definitely made an effort to use everything that would fit in with the nature of the plot to produce a rather eye-catching experience. Audio here is a bit of a mixed bag. You have some levels that really get you pumped up, while others that are just forgettable. Perhaps the worst is this part towards the end, which just sounds like an alarm going off. Not exactly a poor effort, let's just say it could use some work. If you happen to be looking for a cartridge of this one, I have some unfortunate news, as a loose card of this will set you back about $45 American on eBay. It was released quite late in the NES's life cycle after all, and that box art ain't exactly turning heads, which probably hurt its sales. It has however become a bit of a hidden gem in recent years. I do remember playing this for the first time about 10 years ago and wondering why no one had ever mentioned it to me before previously. Good news is that if you have a Nintendo Switch Online account, you already have this available to play for free. The standout feature of this game has to be the depth of its story. I don't think I've ever played another NES game outside of RPGs that had this much story to it. It seriously feels like it was based off a book with all that's going on. On the other hand, the biggest criticism is probably the sheer amount of enemies the game throws at you. It's easy enough in the beginning, but can get frustrating at times, and the knockback as well as minor amount of invincibility you get after being hit only adds to that frustration. If only the designers had removed about a quarter of all the enemies in the game, especially in the second half, I think this could have become a classic on the system. All that being said, I'm going to give Vice Project Doom 9 dooming vices out of 10. In recent years, this has become one of my favorite games on the original Nintendo, and if you have the means to play it, there's a good chance you could feel the same way. Thank you everyone for watching, and if you would like to stay posted on new game reviews as I upload them, please click the subscribe button, as well as checking out the link in the description below for my Twitch channel where I stream most days. I'll talk to you all later on.